Orgasmic enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all. Self-healed prolapse with the Jade Yoni egg. Sometimes people see me doing phantasmagorical things like dead hangs, ab exercises, while also lifting 11 pounds with my vagina. They see me lifting green coconuts, bunches of mangoes, and Venetian chandeliers with my vagina. They might get the impression that it's all stunt tricks or that using the Jade Yoni egg is only a weightlifting practice. Yes, it is an essential exercise regimen. And yes, I do get a kick out of showing people what all vaginas can do. I love educating them that the baseline for vaginas is not peeing their pants or falling out onto the floor. Yes, vaginal prolapse affects 50% of women after childbirth. But the baseline for all vaginas everywhere is to shoot ping pong balls, give hand jobs, make a man orgasm or stop him from orgasming with their flexing power alone, have ravenous libidos, lubricate and ejaculate profusely, and be multi-orgasmic. This is the baseline. If you have anything other than that, your vagina is underperforming. But you can change that. The mistake someone might make is thinking that vaginal kung fu is just a technique to strengthen the vagina. The vagina functions as a second brain, a second heart, and a vessel for creation in a woman's body. It has a physical function and also an energetic one. When the physical function isn't working, the energetic one definitely is not. The energetic element is related to all aspects of a woman's femininity, creativity, and manifesting ability, her self-expression in the world, how deeply she surrenders to life, her partner, and God, and how much of a channel for divine energy she can be. Yeah, all of it comes down to how well she is activating and connected to the energy of her vagina. Then all of these other things come flowing out of it, including babies. In today's episode, we are speaking to well-fucked all-star Dr. Beth. She is a chiropractor, a women's pelvic health specialist, and a big proponent of the Jade Yoni egg. Through using the Jade egg, she healed her prolapse, had an orgasmic free birth at home. Look, Ma, no doctors or midwives. She went from having chronic yeast infections to never having them again. She cleared the residue of suppressed childhood sexual abuse and went from clitoral orgasms to G-spot, cervical, nipple, anal, and of course, her birth orgasm and squirting on demand. Now she sings the praises of the Jade egg and vaginal kung fu, even and especially during pregnancy. She has sex almost every day, even with 5 children and still breastfeeding her youngest. She and her partner use their sexual energy to manifest the things they want in their lives. She says, I can attract it through my pussy. All of this radical and pretty fast transformation came from reconnecting to and turning on the creative power of her vagina. This is the deeper meaning and purpose of vaginal kung fu. Like any martial art, we are learning to tap and wield our energy with high level skill and dexterity. We use our sexual energy as a creative force in our lives to heal ourselves, rebirth ourselves, and shape everything that we do in our existence. Your life mastery starts with your vaginal mastery. Well fucked all stars. Welcome, Beth.
Hi.
Great to have you. Thank you for being here.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity.
So let's dive in to how you found this work and some of the tipping points for you and explosive growth that you experienced.
Totally. So I found you 2 years ago, and I was actually doing pelvic on this patient, and she was asking me about the jade egg. That is how I found her because we were talking about how weak she was in her pelvic floor, and I was all about it. And she started talking to me about taking your course. And of course, I had to dive in because I love sacred sexuality, and I had been studying Tantra before this, but so when I found out about you, you just took it to a whole new level. And so my husband and I, like literally 2 weeks after, discovering you, took our first sex weekend, and it was amazing. It was an amazing weekend. And we came back and got pregnant a week later. And of course, I dove into all of your orgasmic birthing podcasts and really just dive every day. I'm listening to something. And of course, as I know, the universe sends me all of your free birthing podcasts. And I'm like, well, I have a midwife. I'd already planned to do a home birth.
Yeah.
And this was my second home birth. And I had already planned to do a home birth, and but I planned to have a midwife there. But I just kept hearing all of your free birthing podcasts, and I'm kind of laughing about it because I'm like, watch, we're going to be free birthing this baby, and it is exactly how it happened. It was a snowy day, midwife couldn't get there, and I just was in. I've taken multiple courses of yours since then, and I really had to go into that surrender, and it was amazing, and the birth was amazing, and yeah, I can answer so many questions from there, but that's how we found out about you, and so many journeys along the last 2 years. We have been in Anami land, my husband as well, and it's been such a journey.
So we talk about the full range of orgasmopedia in Anami Land, everything from G-spot orgasms, nipple-gasms, anal-gasms, and you've also had the elusive and holy grail of a birth orgasm.
Yes, yes, yes. I've had all of those, yes. I only had a clit orgasm before your work.
So it sounds like you were pretty open to these ideas. Like, even though they were different from the experiences that you'd had thus far, you just ate them all up. Like, you didn't sound like you needed a ton of convincing and potentially your partner either.
Yeah, I have always been into spirituality and I've always been into sexuality, although I closed a lot of that off and didn't even realize it. And kind of going back, before my husband and I thought we had a good sexual relationship, we'd have our sex 3 times a week, 4 times a week, same positions. In order to orgasm, I had to be on top and control the situation. And as we dove into your work, I had so many situations come up, and we had to really work through some of those things, such as, just the programming of why I needed to be on top in general to have an orgasm, or going into, the polarity of our relationship. I've always, been in control to try to protect myself, and not just that. I was dove into that CEO boss woman. I can make my own money. I find my worth in, being successful, and through your work, I had to step back and surrender to some of the situations that, were happening. And so my whole life changed working with your work. I left the office, and started working from home. I had to tap more into my feminine aspect, and situations that led me to do this is, prior to finding out about you, we had miscarried. So it was a interesting thing for me, where I'm like, I am super healthy. I, meditate. I'm very connected. Why would this happen to me? Right. And so I got that intuitive nudge that, hey, it's time to leave our office. And we have a very successful business, a wellness center. We have 20 employees, and I just left one day and I didn't turn back. And so and and that was literally 2 weeks later, I found you, and so you were just right timing. And so that was what started the openness, right? And not start, I've been going through so many things in my life, but and then step by step. So we started off, I taking the couples course. Well, actually, so we studied all of the orgasmic birthing things, and so doing a lot of the work of, I from the physical aspect, doing jade egg work, to try to wake up my pelvis. I had had a lot of trauma actually in my first birth, even though it was a home birth. It was white knuckling it through. So I had a lot of tearing and adrenal burnout, or again, that CEO boss. I had to work till the end, and working 60, 80 hours a week, and I could do it all. I could go to the gym and be a hot mom and get my body back really fast, and I could run a multi-million dollar business, and I could, have this home birth and do things all naturally. And what happened? I burnt the fuck out, right? And I couldn't, after that birth, I couldn't even hold my baby. I was so like burnt out, and already before the postpartum period had even started. So going into your work, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that again. So I dove in 100% into your work. So every day I was listening to you, and listening to the people you were working with on the podcast, and into the course. And so, from the physical aspect, I did work with the Jade Egg, working on bringing my pelvis was numb from sexual abuse, from medical rape to, and when I say medical rape, just we can go into that. Just, I didn't even know what a cervix, what, like, I am a pelvic floor women's health chiropractor, physical therapist, and I had never even touched my own cervix. And I was going into labor, of course, and that's the gate to the portal to the process. And so, the physical portal and the spiritual portal, and I had never even connected to it. I was completely numb, and so I started just working with my body, and working with my husband. I was, he hadn't taken any of the courses yet until postpartum. So it was me just coming to him like, hey, let's do this work. Let's do the eye gazing. Let's do some breathing. Let's meditate after each session, and let's start. He would start doing like pelvic floor work on me, and doing some of the massaging, Yoni massages, and just reconnecting to our bodies, and understanding we don't have to have 15 to 20-minute sessions. We can have hour-long sessions and 3-hour long sessions. And so filling our bodies up with this sexual energy and activating the sexual energy to attract the birth to begin with. So, so many layers there. So if you have any specific areas there you want to go into, but it took a lot of clearing the blocks and surrendering into my feminine and realizing I was so masculine and didn't even realize it, and to have an orgasmic birth, and then surrendering to the process of trying to control the labor as is. I like to control every aspect of my life, and every step of the way of this pregnancy, I had to remind myself, what does surrender look like here? What does softening look like here? What does getting into your body look like here? And that was such a process, and even down to the labor. And the labor was wonderful, but we because we had added on to our family, this was the fifth child, and our house was too small, so we were adding on to our home. So up until the labor, I had 15 men at a time in my house. They had broken open the wall to the add-on. It was dusty. I'm like, universe, how is this going to work out? Like, are you like, I was like, another surrender process.
Yeah.
My midwife had gotten sick, like the weeks of my labor, like it was just one thing after another that was happening. And literally the day I go into labor, my midwife is like, she had done an exam on me, and then she went like to a 2 hour away appointment, and she was like, okay, you're good. Like, and I felt good. I didn't feel like I was going into labor. And all the men had called in sick. We had a big snow day. So I literally had no one in my house. There was so much peace. The midwife didn't show up, and I was like, all right, I'd already listened to all these free birthing, experiences. And so um, the whole process was so beautiful. And the free birthing came along because it also went so fast. I didn't realize how fast it was going to go. And I'm sitting there in bliss in bed and just hanging out with my husband, and he's just loving on me and rubbing on me. And I'm like, uh-oh, I've got to go to the bathroom. He's like, Beth, no. I'm like, well, here we go. Like, here comes the baby. I got in the pool, and I reached in to see where the labor had progressed, and I was like, babe, the baby has the cord wrapped around his neck. So when the baby comes out, you're gonna need to unwrap the cord. And he was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, and he's like, you're just blissed out right now. And I'm like, you're just gonna have to unwrap the cord. He's like, are you kidding me? And through your work, I just knew like everything I needed to know got sent to me. So I would watch video, like I watched videos on cords being wrapped around babies' necks, and like, oh, it's common and it's not a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
And so I was like totally cool. And he was like, okay. And he had to match my energy too, because at first he was like, no, 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 let's wait for the midwife. I'm like, go back and catch your baby, because I am just high as a kite on, hormones and breathing and, just the whole experience of the love we had experienced before I even, had the baby. And so it was a beautiful experience, and the baby came, and my husband unwrapped the cord, and he was good. And so it was an experience.
It's fabulous. I love how you had this very enduring faith through the entire thing, right? This confidence and knowing. And that's the ultimate, I was thinking recently about all these people and their attachments to their biohacking devices and their wearables. And it's like, oh, Suzanne, how did you sleep last night? Oh, let me check my sleep app and I'll tell
I
you.
know, I know.
Apparently I slept good. Thanks for asking. Like it's like they couldn't read their own bodies,
Right.
if they're lives depended on it, right? And so to hear this is so refreshing because that's ultimately the very thing that I want to teach people is to have this, develop this unshakable faith and knowingness within themselves that the medicine, the direction that they need is all within. They just need to tap in and find it and have the faith that it's there, right? The confidence that it's there, which is a process that you build into. But I love how you described, even during your pregnancy, that constant practice of surrender, right? And what is surrender? It's letting go of control and trusting that somewhere within me, or perhaps with some universal help, there is an answer and I can find it if I ask and I open myself to it, right? And that kind of self-reliance and self-resilience to me is everything. So when I
Right.
see people with this like addictive dependence on all of these external, whether it's hormones or drugs or their wearables, like I shudder. I shudder and it's like the opposite of anything that I'm even remotely interested in and can't believe actually that people are that obsessed with the external that like they couldn't tune into themselves to save their lives,
Well, it's
right?
another form of control.
And they need outside validation
Yeah.
constantly. And
Yeah.
that's why people, women especially, end up in the hospital because they're so used to outsourcing their power, outsourcing their knowing, getting somebody else to tell them if they're okay, getting somebody else to tell them if their baby's okay, rather than having any inner awareness of that. It's zilch. It's
Right.
absolutely none. So when it comes time to birth that baby, it's no surprise at all that they end up in the hospital
Right.
because they don't know how to do it. They don't have any faith at all. They've cultivated zero faith in themselves and their knowing ability, which is honestly the grand prize of birth for women. The entire pregnancy and birth process is this massive spiritual opportunity for women to learn to if they're not that strong with it, it's their time to learn it, right? And strengthen that muscle of internal faith and reliance and connection, because that's the thing that's going to get you through your birth in a pleasurable and empowered way versus a birth rape and medical trauma way,
Yeah.
and make you an empowered parent, right? When people are so confused about parenting and they need all this guidance and direction, and we look at the animal kingdom, they don't need shit, right? Like all of that from giving birth to raising their children is completely 100% instinctual. And
Yeah.
humans think that we're so unusual, like we need to read books to know how to raise our babies. Okay, well, what if there was a part within you, a total primal part, which obviously there is, that knows exactly what to do in any given moment if you can tap into it?
Right. Well, and exactly. I mean, my kids have never even been to a pediatrician. I don't know if I can say that.
I neither, never,
I
ever,
mean,
not
like
one.
it's a beautiful thing. Like it's they come out, they connect, and it's great to have guidance, but if you can trust that that guidance will be there when you need it, it's gonna be. And and it's really a beautiful thing. So I'm so grateful I found your work because where I'm at now is such a journey. I thought I was going to be somewhere else, and here I am in motherhood more,
Right.
and not in this businesswoman mode anymore. And maybe that'll come, but right now it's like I am a mother, and what could be more important than influencing our lineage and influencing the control that's out there, and teaching my daughter that and my kids the same principle that you teach. I caught my husband the other day, and the boys are my bonus kids. I have three older kids and then I have two of my own, so we have a family of five. And I like check out, and one's 18 and 16 and 13, and I was just checking on them from we have a balcony and the hot tub is below, and all the boys are in this right now of this girl land and wanting to experience that, and he's like giving the advice that you give. And I loved it so much, just being so open to these conversations of like, these are young men out there that have no idea how to please a woman. And I was just so proud, of hearing his guidance and with them. And I'm doing the same with my 4-year-old daughter. I'm like, oh, that's what control looks like, honey. And yep, I understand that you have a lot of sexual energy and that's okay. And I don't use those words, but I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of energy you have there. And teaching her how to move it through her body already at 4 and is pretty amazing. So I, believe in this work so much that my mom is on this path as well and such a beautiful soul. And I convinced her last well fucked woman to take well fucked woman, and it was so fun to actually do it with her and grow together and work through even the discomforts of, she would see me on the live calls, like making comment, so it was very vulnerable, but also we both grew together in that aspect. And my husband, we have an 18-year-old, he's actually getting him signed up for sexual mastery for men in the summer. And so we've talked about that multiple times. They know about Kim and Ami. Like our 16-year-old and our 18-year-old, because I mean it's so important that they understand too. So of working through their own blocks and belief systems around sex. And if they really truly want to lead in this world the way that they want to lead, then they have to learn to transmute sexual energy and, understand it and respect it and, how to please a woman too. And so our son literally, my husband went to like a Joe Dispenza seminar for a week. And so I had the kids and the boys were all like, so women don't want sex as much as men. I'm like, whoa, that is funny how that gets sent down. And I was like, that is not true at all. That's not true. And so getting their beliefs changed about that is funny how in society that is what, if men don't know how to please a woman. They've never been taught, and the only way they learn is through porn. And so having those conversations with your kids about what porn really is and the energy wrapped around it, and if you believe in negative energies that can connect to you through that, and burning out your yen, your energy is that you could use for so many other things, is we're teaching our 18 and 16-year-old that, and our 13-year-old too, but at a different level,
I
so
love that. And it is interesting, that idea that women don't like sex as much, but then that kind of takes the onus off men to bother pleasing women, because if they don't really like it that much, why would you bother, right? Why put much effort into it? So I love, and this is what I love to see, the parents become the primary source of this information. And that's what all parents need to know, because if you aren't, then they're getting it from all of these very sketchy sources,
yeah.
instead of, especially if you've gone through the Anomi work and play and you have this altered, enlightened, I would say, perspective to share with them. That's the most beautiful education. One of the biggest gifts you can give them is helping them to awaken from a more sexually enlightened place.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Incredible. So let's back up to more of your process, because it sounds like surrender and control, feminine and masculine dynamics were a big theme for you. Did you mention as well a numb pelvis?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then I don't know if you want to go into it and don't feel like
Sure.
you have to, but you use the term medical rape. So is
Yeah.
there anything you want to share about that
Yeah.
like era of your development, and then
Yeah.
how you moved out of that?
Yes. Man. Okay. So I had only had a clitoral orgasm up until your work. And as we start exploring the pelvis and exploring certain areas, and this is like through the Jade egg, through my husband, through my own self work. I just started to notice I was numb, and not from a physical aspect. You have some in your work, we work on clearing the blocks. And as you start sitting with your body, and I was doing, vaginal gazing, and I would talk to my Yoni every day and just start asking it questions, and I would start having, and I am an NET practitioner, so I do neuro emotional technique, and so I would start muscle testing myself, like, okay, what emotions are trapped in your pelvis? And a lot of shame and betrayal was coming up, and you mentioned medical, I mentioned medical rape, and why I say that is I was a college kid, and they were handing out HPV vaccines, right? And so I was talked into getting one, and I, of course, got supposed HPV, and the
After
medical.
getting the vaccine.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, this is when I was naive, 18 years old, and just kind of waking up and into consciousness, and they of course are like, let's burn your cervix, right, with this leap procedure. And what they do is they go in and they're like, we have found some abnormal cells on your pap smear, and which I don't get anymore, and I haven't had one in a million years, I feel like. But at that time I trusted this doctor, right? And she was like, it could be nothing, but it could be, so let's go in and let's burn off the cells of your cervix. And that's what she did. And now looking back, this, like, I had no feeling and there's so much scar tissue on my cervix. And so I'm so grateful, thinking about my first labor with my daughter, that she came out naturally, and
Uh, I
so.
was I was just gonna say, that is usually, I think, it creates scar tissue, which can make it harder for the cervix to open during birth. And so they preempt their later stage interventions by these earlier ones, like, say, casual LEEP procedures, where like anything can be abnormal cells, right?
Yeah.
Anything.
Yes.
How many women
Yes.
have that? Like almost all of them. And then they just do this, oh, precautionary LEEP procedure, scar the cervix. Then women are in labor down the line, and they have a, what a difficult to progress, or their cervix isn't
Yeah.
open
Not
quickly enough.
dilating.
And it's like, okay, well, that's from an earlier decision. So yeah, the fact that that wasn't an issue for you, and I'm sure it's not an issue for everyone, but it is a contributing factor that's
But
been
it
shown.
did numb my pelvis, because even through the work, I wasn't able to have these cervical orgasms. I have had them now, but it's, there's stages, right? As you have taught, of these cervical orgasms. So I'm still working to more. And I mean, I guess that's what a birthing orgasm is part of, is cervical, but it was full body, more in cosmic. But now with the cervical orgasms, I'm getting more emotions flying and tears and things like that. But it was through, like, working through this work of, I actually have one of your glass dildos, and it's anahata, and I would just, like, apply pressure there and just almost pray over it, of just like, tell me more, give me more information, and this is one of the reasons I love taking your Well Fuck Woman course, is because I felt so empowered, where I felt like when we took the couples course, I always had to wait on my husband, like, come on, let's go. Like, I need work every day. You gotta come help me. And now after taking your Well Fucked Woman, I'm like, wait, I can do this all myself. I can touch my own cervix. I can do my own work, which is funny because I work in pelvic. And so it's really funny that, like, what you're taught in school is so medical, and then when you get into it, you're like, wow, why are we not connected to our creation energy? Like, we could create anything we want in our world. We are these infinite beings, and activating this energy is essential to connecting to that. And so anyway, so I did a lot of the emotional work and the clearing the blocks work through myself, like working with my husband, and then on the physical aspect, doing the jade egg and the breast massage and breathing work, and and I do something every day, of some aspect of your work, to open myself up physically, emotionally, spiritually, so I can, keep reaching a potential that hasn't been met yet in my life.
So something you said earlier about having a numb vagina, but it sounds like, and this would be the case for many women, you didn't really realize it was numb until you got in there and started
Yes.
exploring it and
Yes.
connecting with it, and then it started to wake up. And I think that's the case for so many women. They don't know what they don't know, or they don't know that their vaginas are meant to be this, wealth of pleasure and in infinitely sensitive and with so much sensation within them. They're just kind of numb receptacles that they don't think much of, which is why most women end up fairly fixated on their clitoral orgasms, because it's an immediate burst of energy, like a sugar rush. Right. And yet they go into their vaginas and they don't feel very much. And like, yeah, all right, well, back to the clitoris we go. And so and then you mentioned being on top, which is a great position for more clitoral rubbing and
Right. Oh,
stimulation,
for
right?
sure.
So, how do you think then? So you mentioned the block clearing, yoni gazing, the jade egg, putting the dildo up near the cervix to kind of awaken it and even encourage a dialogue, encourage a
Mhm.
conversation,
Mhm.
right? So as that began to happen, then I'm assuming that that was parallel development with having more orgasms in the vagina, right? As you wake it up and you build that sensation, then a natural result is going to be X plus Y equals orgasms.
My first orgasm that I had had was not G-spot, was not cervical, it was squirting, and it was squirting across the room. And I've always wanted to do that, so I kind of had it as an intention. But it's crazy, how which drove my husband wild, which was awesome too. But it's a fun party trick.
One more thing, is there anything else that you would talk about with squirting, do you think that's worth sharing?
um, have towels. And no, just kidding. We ruin lots of bed sheets and bedding, and we use protective gear. With the squirting, I do think that was with strengthening my vagina. That was huge with working with, and not just the numbing, but also how weak I was with the babies. I actually had prolapsing, and so with prolapsing of the organs, with my bladder was coming into my vaginal canal. With re-strengthening the pelvis through the jade egg, it not only helped with the prolapsing, but it also helped with the like ejecting, the squirting, because I've always wanted to squirt and I just didn't think it was possible. And then when you told me I could, I believed I could, and then just allowed it from there. So as I did continued to do the work, it's starting to, or not starting, I mean, I can squirt over and over and over and over and over. And but I
Squirting
think
on demand. Squirting on demand.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In any position, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's on demand multiple times, and it connects to a G-spot orgasm. And it didn't start like that for me, but as I continued to get deeper into the work, it started to move to a G-spot orgasm with the squirting, and so that was a big thing, is the strengthening as well.
Beautiful. And the energy of the squirt, oh, the prolapse. You mentioned the prolapse. So you felt that the egg then helped to correct the prolapse.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was so weak in my pelvic floor, and even in school, in doing pelvic floor physical therapy, we're taught Kegels, but again, um, a lot of people are, and I agree with this work, but a lot of people are moving away from the Kegel even altogether. Like, don't just do Kegels. And now I'm like, wait, why are we moving away from this? And I do know that breathing and all these other components of the core system have an effect, but you have to work the system, and adding weight, you have to add resistance to get any strength, in your vagina. And so and it's powerful. It makes you feel powerful and strong. And so it's so important to strengthen underweight, underload. It only makes sense, really. And so yeah, once I strengthened the muscles of the front side of my pelvis, it was great. Yeah, no more prolapsing.
And what level of prolapse would you say that you had?
I had like a level 1 to 2. It wasn't severe, but it wasn't coming out of the vaginal canal, but it was, it affected my daily life in that I couldn't run. It couldn't, it would cause leaking and other things. So that was huge. And yeah, no, so I think that that was the biggest thing. And I started working with the Jade egg um, postpartum. So during the Well Fucked Woman salon, and that's when I started. And so, it increases libido and it increases strength and it improves the orgasm strength as well. And so I would have certain orgasms that might last a couple seconds. And as I worked with the jade egg, they would go, longer as well. So with the squirting, you squirt farther and you have more ejaculate, but with the other orgasms, they last longer. And so, and I feel like I'm stronger to move it through my body as well.
Amazing. Love that. And then, as a pelvic floor therapist, how else would you talk about the jade egg as being an important part of a pelvic rehabilitation or healing routine?
Yeah, so I mean, so many women I work with, and I work with all mainly pregnancy postpartum, but I get so many also women that like even that are going through menopause that are getting their uteruses taken out. And so it helps to avoid that, I believe. I think with from issues, it can help with hemorrhoids, it can help with leaking, it can help with pelvic pain, it can help with prolapsing, and so it can help with tightness, can help with weakness and getting you like back pain, pubic bone pain. I mean, all of these issues can be caused from disconnection to your muscles. And it's not just the strength, it's the coordination as well. And so being able to feel your pelvis lift from 360 degrees and be able to lift the egg and have proprioceptive feedback is so important to be able to feel your tissues working or not working, and then working from there and sending intention to get those issues. So those are all physical issues that I'll see. Low libido, I think I might have said that. And again, it helps with all the orgasms, where it's crazy to me, Kim, how many women have come in and don't have orgasms. Not even one. And you know this because this is what you've been doing, but it blows my mind that now that I'm asking the questions to every patient, like, well, are you orgasming? And and they're like, nope. And so getting reconnected to your vagina, the jade egg is just an easy way if you don't have any, traumas associated with it, which you work through. Then it's just a huge way to reconnect to yourself there, because we are, with religion and our society, like it is so shameful to put your fingers in your vagina and put an egg in your vagina, and it's just lack of education. And once women start learning how to navigate their pelvic bowl, they're like, wow, okay, like what have I been missing? And labor is easier, and healing postpartum is easier. Could be a lot of people are afraid to work with things when they're pregnant. And for
Yeah.
me, I was having orgasms 3 days postpartum, right? Like, and I'm like, this is healing me, you know? And so my husband and I were already, I talked to women too that postpartum, it's been 3 months and they still haven't had sex with their husband. And I'm like, wow. And that disconnect, right? And that is an essential need for both people. And so for me, just even working with the jade egg during pregnancy or before you get pregnant, all of the above, the whole continuum, and then postpartum after you've healed and are able to do that, like you're going to have so much more connection to yourself and be able to achieve fitness goals and sexual goals and financial goals and any of the goals that you have in mind. So I 100% recommend it.
And I think the thing to differentiate too is that it's not just, and we've mentioned this already, and it's been implied through our whole conversation, but it's not just a physical program. It's not just a regimen of working with the egg from the strictly physical perspective. Like I would never just sell a jade egg on my website without an accompanying program that isn't, it's, yes, it's physical, but there's a whole underlying energetic, spiritual, emotional component to it, because otherwise the work falls flat or it doesn't hold, or people only get so far because there is so much woven into our vaginas, our organs, our entire sexual experience and being, that we have to look at it ourselves multidimensionally and see all the places, go hunting, go excavating, go demon hunting, as I call it, to find where the blockages are, release them, and then we accelerate, we quantum leap our progress. But if it was just doing one of those, the work wouldn't be anywhere near as effective.
And I'll say that too. I've studied this stuff and not just the physical aspect of the jade egg, but Tantra before. And it's something about the way that you package it and do it, the processes, that it really works. And so it's yeah, you can't just do these exercises. You have to, like you said, go demon hunting, and there's so many layers, and you throughout the year of Anami land uncover and uncover and uncover and uncover, and it's crazy. And sometimes you're like, whew, okay, hold on here. I need a break from all the things that you're just uncovering, but then it just gets easier and easier as you do the work. And I'm at one of the hardest stages possibly of someone's life, a woman's life, is postpartum and having breastfeeding and maintaining a relationship, a business, and all these things. And this work has made it so much easier to have a foundation to come back to, and knowing that if you can do this first, then everything in the rest of your life will be easier and simpler.
Right. Intimacy first, orgasms first, everything else flows out of that.
Yeah,
And I think too, like you said, it becomes a way of life. So most people, I think their default apparatus is to go unconscious, right?
right.
Where here it's about, no, let's go conscious, face these things, address them, alchemize them. And once you build up strength in doing that as a way of being, as a way of life, it becomes your new default setting. And you just naturally do that. You're naturally looking, okay, here's an issue. Let's look at it. Let's deal with it. We move on. We then move up a level spiritually from having dealt with it and conquered it. And then what's next for us to look at? Anami, there's always another level to go.
And then came the G-spot orgasm, and then slowly the cervical orgasms, and being a control freak, I was had a super tight ass, and you talk about that all the time, and now having anal gasms to where I'm like, yep, babe, I had a rough Christmas. So we were busy and we had a lot of dumpster fires, and I was like, I think I need some anal, babe. Like, I need to chill the fuck out right now. And it works, because you have to surrender, and not just in my own body, to my man, right? And I love it because we know when we, like, now we have to have, like, if there is not intercourse minimum 3 times a week, but on average 4 to 5 to 6 times a week, with kids, with a new baby, with I'm
Five,
breastfeeding.
5 children, a new baby, and breastfeeding, and still having sex 3 to 6 times a week.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah. And we have to
And
work
it does.
around naps and things, it's like we have to plan it, right? Like we have to say, look, we might not have a 3 hour sex date, but we are going to have a 2 hour sex date, or we are going to last until the nap. We have to organize it. Like, we might not orgasm this session, but we can come back tonight and play. But we've, like, oh, the baby took a nap for, an hour. So we had, an hour of play, and getting out of the mindset of we have to orgasm, and just enjoying the ride is a lot more fun, because then you're just organically coming up with all of these things that you want to do to increase pleasure, and you're just playing. We have I bought these, like, it's like a rolly shelves, and we just have all the sex things in. You just roll it out. You're like, it's all ready. It's like, what do you want to do today, baby?
So something you said earlier about realizing how important it is. Like, I think one of the stumbling blocks for couples is they don't understand what sex can do for them. They don't understand the energy that sex will give them, the equilibrium, the calm, the ease. And so they put it off. They're like, well, it'd be more productive to clean the house or go to sleep or whatever. And yet you then, once you get to a certain point, you realize, no, the best thing we can do is to have sex. That's going to elevate us, rejuvenate us, connect us, calm us. We do that, and then we have a better energy from which to do everything else in our lives, right? So that's when you make the decision, because people will use all these other excuses of why they can't. You've got the best excuses going. You've got 5 kids, best excuse. A newborn baby, best excuse, right? Like, no one's going to argue with you except me. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
validity of those excuses. But
I get
then,
upset now if we're not. I'm like, babe, it's only been 3 times a week. I literally told him last night. I'm like, are you gonna fuck me or go watch that game? I was like, I need it. Like, I need it, to create more milk. Like, my body is at a point where it's like starting to slow down, and I'm using those techniques of meditate, masturbate, create, to, or really have sex, to create more milk and create, like, that's where I've already achieved attracting money and those things. So I've kind of tapped into that, but now it's like tapping into staying younger, and, like, so those are the things I'm creating in my life, of more milk and more feeling in my vagina. And, like, it's gonna, like, funny how that's where we're at these days. But yeah, the excuses are real, and they're easy to do. And when we don't take it as an excuse of, like, well, and this was another, one of the blocks my husband and I had to clear, because he grew up in a Mormon background. What He's not Mormon anymore, but was that women only, like, want sex for baby. They don't
right,
want sex, right?
they're not inherently sexual beings. They have to be
Yeah.
coerced or tricked into it,
Yeah.
or they just do it out of obligation.
Yeah, well, and before your work, I realized I was having, this on top doing, I was having sex. It was almost always, the energy was always on him, of, like, pleasing him. And then after your work, it started, but what do I like? What do I want? What do I, like, wait, I am very sexual. Like, I want it, if not more than, and he's very sexual as well, which I love. But now we're matching each other. So we had to change those aspects of me trying to please him and him having the belief system that women don't want it as much as men. And now he's like, all right, this is definitely not the truth. And we've been married 10 years, and we're better than ever, and we're going strong. And so it's a really beautiful thing.
I love that because it's such a great illustration of how it's a choice, right? When people, oh, we don't have time, we have kids, we're working, blah, blah, blah. You choose to reconfigure your lives and prioritize your intimate connection when you believe it's important and worth doing. If couples aren't doing that, it's because they don't believe it yet. They don't believe it's worth changing things and taking that chance to prioritize their intimate life, that is the source, right? I often describe it like your intimate connection is the nucleus, for your entire family. And when that cell is powered up and on fire, it flows energy out to every other part of the organism, right? You are the epicenter. And when that connection is strong and powerful and flowing, it feeds everything else. But when it's not, when it's a black hole, it sucks everything else into it like a vortex, from finances to family dynamics to health issues. And then the
Oh yeah.
opposite happens when you're truly in that zone of bliss and connection and using it as like we fuel up, right? It's literally a plug-in. That plug goes into the socket and we create the energy there. So I love hearing that. I love um the 5 children, sex nearly every day commitment, because we know that that's what fuels our lives and our
Yeah.
family.
And sometimes it's with self, and it's self work, right? And so if it's 6 times a day for me, or a week, or 7 times of some sort of intimacy with myself,
Yeah.
which then fuels my relationship and fuels anything I want to create. And now that I can't not talk about this now that I work with patients, and it's like, oh, you have a shoulder injury. Oh, you like, oh, it's probably like rooting from something
You're
else.
probably
Radical
undercooked.
honesty, you're not being honest in your relationship. Which I do say, I recommend your work to every patient. Because I work with women and I love it. But the other thing that you talk about a lot is all these manifestations of issues that we have. Like I used to get like chronic yeast infections, and I wouldn't need to, I would just treat them naturally, but I never looked at that block sexual energy aspect, or that my body saying no to my husband, and why am I saying no to him, and once you dove into that work, you're like, oh wow, and now I'm a fuck yes all the time, and I haven't had one of those infections in 2 years.
Right. And
Been
that's
doing your work, or a year and a half.
right, right. And that's something that in my work in Anami land, we look at all of these things as blocks that we throw up into the space. That if we don't know how to say no, or there's lingering issues within us that don't get resolved, we'll create some kind of symptomology, like where yeast infections are like, oh no, I can't have sex. I have a yeast infection, right? So the body says no when we can't. And
Right.
then when those blockages get cleared and any unresolved things get spoken and alchemized, then poof, these chronic issues disappear. And because we've done the inner work, and then they stay away so long as we keep in that flow of honest expression, of sexual expression, verbal, emotional expression, all of that combines to keep those channels flowing clearly. So I love hearing that. So, what other, you mentioned the whole manifestation attraction process, that you've already had experience with that. Like, how did that amplify in then bringing the sexual energy piece into it? Because I always talk about sexual energy being creative and pro-creative energy. And the more that we're tapped into it, we can then use it as a conscious, malleable source in our lives to make more, have our outer lives be more in alignment with the inner essence of what we truly desire and who we really are.
Oh yeah. So, and again, this started with your work in the last couple of 2 years. We will have sex to these things that we want, whether it's a mountain home or a rental property in Mexico or more passive income or, and we will not only, state an intention during our intercourse, but we will also do it after. We'll kind of lay with each other and we're breathing in and breathing up the sexual energy and moving it through kind of that cosmic orbit and just envisioning this life that we want and really, we just bought a mountain home with cash and and I grew up in a trailer park. I grew up and he as well. We grew up working for what we wanted and that's that big switch that I had to switch through of like, oh, well, my man's got this. I can attract through my pussy. He can be more of the dude and he always has been, but I was competing for that for worth. And now I'm like, oh, I can just sit in pleasure and do the same thing and it's also reversed when we notice things starting to happen. We're like, oh, like in a negative way, like, oh, those bookings canceled. Oh, like this flood happened in our home in Mexico. We're like, oh, we get what's going on with us, like let's and so we go back to the source instead of blaming the thing. We're like, oh, let's go back here first and see where our energy is off because we're in progress, right? And there's always things that come up. And so if we're not constantly clearing that glass and working through ourselves and with each other, then we notice our outer world starts to, these things we've attracted start to, fall. And we're like, oh, it's time to get back. Oh, it's been 3 days, since we've connected. Like, I don't care if the baby's sick. I don't care. Like, we need to reconnect. And so we're taking responsibility for the things when there's resistance in our outer world. We're kind of going within and within each other and noticing where's that resistance there. So that's
I
huge for us.
love that. I love that. That's the ultimate self responsibility, right? Is like looking at your outer circumstances as a barometer, as a reflection for the harmony and the flow within, individually or collectively within the relationship. And then instead of whining about it, right, to say, okay, well, something
Maybe
must
some whining. No, just kidding. I'm joking. I'm kidding. I'm
yeah, we're
kidding.
all human, right?
I'm kidding.
But like, but to go in and assume, okay, on some level, we manifested this. On some level, this is reflecting an inner level that can be optimized better, right?
Right.
Because when we do that, then we'll see that result in our outer lives. So I love that you've structured your lives like that now. That's amazing.
Yeah, number one, it's yeah, sexual energy creation. So if you want anything, you have to ignite your sexual energy. You have to feel some sort of arousal every single day in yourself that is from within, not from coffee or whatever. And and yeah, and it's truth. And what I'm so sad about, and I'm so grateful for your work, and I hope to have whatever impact as well, is that when you start talking about this to the outer world, how closed off people get to it. And I'm so grateful
But
for the way you put things because you make it ingestible, right? Like people can, and you speak such beautiful truth and I don't know. I have loved the way that's why I recommend everybody to you because I just want more of this consciousness out in the world. I want my children to grow up with conscious humans and if you don't understand this piece, like we have been blocked from the source and this is at a huge, big, way bigger level than just having more pleasure. So what you're doing is so much more. And you know this, but I just want the world to start waking up to, hey, like we've got to release all of these blocks that we have in working with our sexual energy, and how many marriages would be saved and how many people would start taking responsibility for their life. And you know this, but anyway, so I am grateful for the way you do things because it's making such a bigger impact than, than anything.
I'm so glad to hear that. And it's spoken like someone who's done the work and seen the results, right? Because you
Right.
get to compare the before and after. And then, like I said, the way that your whole lens has changed in terms of prioritizing your sex life, and then using your outer life as this reflection of where we're at. Right. And then I love for most couples, it's like there's a 3 day limit that they really can't go beyond 3 days before they realize like things get ruffly and bristly in their outer lives, and they're like,
Yeah.
hey, what's going on? Oh my gosh, like we haven't had sex in 3 days. I get to the
Yes.
bathroom. I'll meet you there in 10
Yes.
minutes, you know, like
Yes.
they know straight away that that is the magic panacea to shift everything immediately.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just so fun. Like it's like you say, like not even it starts way before the bedroom. It's like, like, hey, babe, like all I need you to do, like when you're in this early motherhood too, and you're like milk everywhere and you feel disgusting and you don't quite yourself, and you're like, all I need you to do is grab my ass or like grab my like to like these little things, like see me for 2 minutes and just say, damn, you're doing a good job, or like you're hot, whatever it is, and then it just starts it. Like it's these little things that you talk about in your courses that are so beautiful, that we men and women are so oblivious to. Like it's so easy, like when you walk in, when your husband walks in the room, you're just gonna run up to him and just love on him, whether it's grabbing his cock when no one's around, or a longer makeout session in the hallway, and letting your kids see that. And it's a beautiful thing.
So you mentioned how much you love orally pleasuring your man.
Oh
Was
yeah.
that always the case, or did that increase, or how did your relationship with his cock shift?
So you always talk about this, like having this separate relationship with his cock versus, versus him, as, they're almost like two separate entities. And once you realize, like before we did this work, I kind of like I didn't mind oral, and I did it, and I would swallow his cum and all of that. But once you learn, like, oh my gosh, like deep throat of your cock, and like giving him a 45-minute blowjob, I'm like, this is for me too. Like when you kind of like turn it into that, like it's like, I need this. I like
Why do you need it?
ravish this
Yeah.
thing.
What's it doing for
It
you?
just gives me energy. It gives me life. It gives me connection. It's it makes me like uh I love worshiping him too. And like, I know that it strengthens our bond, but I just feel like there's, like with the deep throating, even like when I have a sore throat or anything like that, I like have that intention, but it's I just kind of love doing it now. And so it's just fun, and for us, that's a huge gateway for his internal orgasm as well. And so that's, like me working, we've kind of found those on buttons, and that is one way that turns on his internal orgasm as well, as doing, oral, and you talk about in your courses doing some of the acupuncture pressure points of, the balls and the perineum and the anus and the cock, and when you're working on those with intention as you teach, it's a whole different ball game than sucking a cock. You're like, okay, number one, I need this to feel good, attract into my life what I want, but also like I need you to also be on point and, open up into your heart space. And if I want you, there is some selfish intention there. If I want him to be a better father and, more energy out into the world, and leading our family, and his, being the leader, like this is, there, me on my knees is like, there's nothing better, right? And so there's something about that. There was one time, the first time we were taking, I don't know if I think I was taking Well Fucked Women at that time. But there was like the sun, we were out on our balcony and the sun, we live on 5 acres, so we can kind of do this. But there was like sun setting, and I was like, I had given him like a 30-minute, I set a timer just so I wouldn't leave early. But you get lost in it and you're like, oh wow, it's been 30 minutes already. And, and he said he had never felt so powerful. Like I'm like sucking his cock on the balcony and the sun is setting and he's just like felt like this god, of like I can do anything. And I was like, yeah, you can do anything, and so that was a beautiful moment of now I'm looking at his, semen as elixir now, and not to be wasted. And those are all great lessons that you have taught and understanding like, wow, I didn't want that. Why didn't I want that at that moment? Oh, there's a block there, or not like, and that's very rare, but you just start learning like when you have these blocks that you never would have thought of before. And so it's beautiful.
I love it. So tell me more about as you went from someone who was only having clitoral orgasms, and then that expanded into nipple gasms, anal gasms, G-spot, cervical orgasms. How do you feel that having those orgasms changed you? So obviously it'll change your sexual experience, and feel free to talk about that. But also then, how does it change you as a person? Because I always talk about these as being good fuck medicine or essential therapeutic application for women, right? Like beyond just, they feel good, right? There's so much more deeper transformation going on with them. And what did you notice? How did that then impact your daily life?
Well, number one is like you talk about this all the time, is you never feel so close to the divine, right? Like you feel so connected to all of life. Like colors are brighter. Like everything in your world is just like I don't know, like more present, calmer. You're living more intentionally, where again you're creating your day and your world in every moment, and so by reconnecting to yourself, for me it reconnected, the lights came on. And everybody has different beliefs, but I'm going to say this of my beliefs. It finally dawned on me that, oh my God, I am divine. I am, I am flesh, but I am divine. And that through awakening the cervix and awakening my sexual energy, I just felt so alive, in my life. And so that's the biggest thing I can say. And is the connection I feel to the divine within myself, and the divine around, the divine. And so but on a lower level, but not a lower level, I'm more confident, and you care less about what people think. And I am chronically was worried about what people thought of me, and not feeling enough. That was another one, like not feeling enough. And once you start having these experiences, you're like, whoa, none of that matters. None of that matters. And so anyway, it just took me up levels of consciousness. Honestly, that's for me, that's what it did. And now I can't go back. And
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
once the lights are on, you're like, okay, okay.
So what's your favorite go-to orgasm? Or do you use them all for different, like you mentioned a little while ago, okay, I've had a really rough time of it. I need anal, but do you have a favorite go-to that is just your ultimate reset?
So my husband cannot go a session without squirting. He loves it, and I love it too. It's like all, but so that is definite, but that's just for fun. But from a must go to, connecting to the cervical orgasm is like heart, right? It's like connecting to your heart and heart opening. I am trying to live, my goals are right now are to just be present, surrender to the flow, of whatever life has for you, that is beyond my limited thinking. And so when I can lead from my heart space, and I've had so much trauma, Kim, in my life that I've closed that space off. And so by opening my cervix, which is still a process right now, I'm still working on it, but it gets me so much more into my heart space. And so that for me is a reset of like, in order to have a cervical orgasm, I have to have this huge connection to my husband. We have to have all the things cleared. I have to have this trust in him. I have to have this surrender in myself. And so that definitely is the go-to for sure. And we're kind of getting in specific ways where I can do that, but again, stopping trying to make things happen and allowing is a work in progress, right? Of like allowing the possibility of what my pussy has not discovered yet. That is still there in the layers, I'm a lot further than I was 2 years ago. A lot further, but yeah, heart space. Cervical orgasms for heart opening.
I love that. And I would agree, like the biggest cure all. And for that reason, right? When that heart intelligence, when they talk about the heart brain, vagina brain, there's all these different brains, but I would think the heart really is our number one. Well, heart and vagina compasses that when they're switched on and they're open and they're functioning as they're meant to be, like they talk about the heart as this toroidal field. Like there's been some discussion even that it's not a pump, it's a toroidal field. Like it's a different kind of energy vortex than we've
Right.
been taught that it is. And that when that's really functioning, it's our ultimate radar and guidance system, right? And so I love that. That's really beautiful.
Well, I should be thanking you for the guidance there.
You mentioned here that the course had helped you uncover blocks and sexual trauma that you'd kept suppressed for your entire life. Is there
Mhm.
anything that you want to go into there?
Sure. Yeah. So, um, before I took your work with the numb pelvis, I didn't know that I had been sexually molested as a child, and I was 3. And through your work and the numb pelvis, I had realized, okay, I'm numb. And you mentioned over and over working with a therapist. And I didn't even know why I was going. I literally went to the therapist and said, I have a numb pelvis and I don't know why. And I was doing some of the work and it wasn't making a difference yet. Um, and within this work, it came through. I had memories arise, and I did it for, a good while. And the memories came back that I was sexually molested. And and then, I was able to confirm and it was, oh, and emotionally I wasn't connected to it. I didn't even remember it, right? And then as I remembered, more feeling came back, and then work like the jade egg work. And I also, my husband did perineural on my scar, from the tearing of my first pregnancy. And so all of those tools that you recommended in your work, then those things started to really work after I cleared some of the sexual trauma of like just even knowing that that happened. It was like, wow, the violation that happened when you were vulnerable, and connecting those two together, and then and realizing how much you block from from your sexual energy because you don't want to get hurt again. And so, disconnecting from my husband because he was a male and I was, molested by a male, and not even realizing those things, and until your work. And so that has been really beautiful. And so Then that took the Jade Egg practice even further, right? And once I started releasing those deep, deep betrayals and shit, blocks that were there.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Like that the foundational blockages, if they're not shifted, it just slows people down. It slows them down or makes it almost like very challenging to move forward until that stuff gets addressed and
Hmm.
shifted.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you don't even know they're there. So,
Yeah. Well,
until you start talking every day to, you talk about this all the time about, not entering the vagina unless it's wet. And that includes my self-work of like, well, am I okay to go in? And starting to talk to your Yoni and asking, can I enter? What do you have to tell me? And so you're always going back to her as, and she holds so much wisdom in our wombs and in our yummies. So I'm like, wow, why have I never talked to her before? And it is a beautiful thing once she starts revealing the secrets that she holds.
love it. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on yet?
I just want to say, I just recommend that people go along this journey with you, and that if you're even thinking about doing it, I say this to every patient I work with, it will change your life if you go deep dive, and it might change your world in a way you didn't think of. And the stuff that's unfolding for our lives is magical, and directions I never thought I would take, I'm taking, and being okay with it, and because I'm trusting that flow. And so this has all come out of your work. And it's a lot of people go in thinking it's just a sex course, and it's just to have, let's have better sex, and great if that gets you in the door, awesome. But it's so much deeper if you're willing to do the work. And I'm still in the work, and I will be the rest of my life, because that's who we are. We're forever changing and forever growing and discovering and experiencing. So really, it's just a thank you, and I just recommend that people actually take the leap, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Start somewhere. It doesn't matter which course, because you're going to end up taking all of them. So, in my experience.
Amazing. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Ken.
Vaginal Kung Fu is open for registration now, and it closes tomorrow evening, Friday, January 30th at midnight PST. In the salon, you will become a maestro of all things vaginal and sexual, the consummate Kung Fu vagina. You will learn my legendary, world famous step by step guided vaginal weightlifting routine, Yoni massage to denumb and activate your vagina, quantum techniques to clear your blocks and illuminate your sexual shadow, breast massage to tone, lift, and enlarge the breasts, natural birth control and detoxing off the pill, how to make menstruation and menopause the energizing and rejuvenating portals they were meant to be. The exact technique that I used to consciously control the frequency of my menstruation for decades. I made it every 3 and then 6 months, and then consciously ceased menstruating. We're told that these things are autonomic, they're beyond our control, but that's not true. How to give a vaginal hand job, and how to use your sexual energy to heal yourself, including my sex position mood guide and vaginal reflexology points. To sign up, go to kimanami.com, look for Sexual Savant Salons, and then click on Vaginal Kung Fu. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and send somebody else the gift of a multi-orgasmic and transformational love life by sharing this episode with them. If you'd like to go deeper into all things orgasms, sign up for my free Orgasmopedia series where you'll learn about 9 different types of orgasms everyone can have. Go to kimanami.com and you'll see the sign up there. Come one, come all.